Good evening, and it's the Wild Medicine Duo here, coming to you to talk about September's amazing. The land's just amazing right now, isn't it?
There's
And
so much going on.
I know our Heal Scotland challenge is forage something a day, like a forage a day. So it's such a nice time to do it because, I mean, even at our garden's like full of brambles, and Peter's got really nice strawberries in hanging baskets, which was a nice idea. The nettle seeds are just heavy and they are ready to be picked. So how is it up in Lochalan?
Yeah, it's the season of abundance, and we actually had a little bit of sunshine over the weekend, which has been a rarity this summer. I think Scotland, but particularly in the Highlands. But yeah, as you say, the brambles are starting to ripen up. The fruits are hanging from the trees. Nettle seeds are ripe. The rowans are red. There's elderberries around. The mushrooms are popping in the woods. You know, it's just, this is really the season of abundance. This is pure harvest now. So getting your stores all in for the winter season ahead. So now is the time to grab your baskets and get into the outdoors.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Especially with the fruit. I remember at Barmoloch, we would have all this fruit arriving at the same time. And well, with the blueberries, we used to just freeze them because that was great. I could just turn them into a sorbet really quickly. So freezing is obviously a good thing to do. Jams, obviously, as well. What else? Is there anything? And ice lollies for your kids. It's a great way to, when they're asking for something, as they do, something sweet, that you've got something that's got at least some nutrition in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, fermenting things as well is a great way if we're talking about food preservation. Fermentation is obviously a great way to preserve things or to lengthen the life. And if you want to, if you're looking at fruit, then things like fruit drinks, so you can just add smashed up. So something that I've been doing at this time of year with the brambles starting to ripen up is just smashing them up in a little bit of spring water or filtered water and adding some raw honey to that. So you've got that natural sweetness from the honey, but obviously raw honey is a live food, and it's, it helps to kickstart the fermentation process. So it's a kind of wild ferment that you can you just smash them up, put some water and some honey in a jar, and leave it on your kitchen counter for a few days. Obviously, depending on the heat of your room, the temperature of your kitchen will determine how quickly that starts to ferment. But it'll basically ferment into a kind of lightly sparkling, really delicious beverage. And you can drink that as it is, or you can dilute it down if you find the taste a bit strong. But again, that's like helping with gut diversity. It's supporting the good bacteria and the microbiome. And it's a way of preserving the gluts of the season. But yeah, freezing as well is a fantastic one for fruit. As you say, jams, I tend to lean more towards the less sugary preservations, but
yes.
Multitudes. Yeah,
it's just something nice, isn't it? It's like that chocolat where you make it yourself, and it's, it just doesn't feel bad. And usually, if it comes at the end of a meal, or it can be
moderation.
Yes, exactly. I'm just looking at the book here. I forgot how beautiful that photo. It's absolutely gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah, I love this time of year. I mean, there's always a slight thing about September because you know that the days are getting shorter and you're heading towards colder, darker, probably wetter months, and the daylight is starting to recede. But there's just something really beautiful about the light at this time of year and the abundance of, all the wild foods that are around. It's a really special time. So I always have to remind myself to be in the moment at this time of year and not be like, oh, winter's coming, it's all going to be terrible, because I actually quite like winter as well. But yeah, I would definitely encourage people to be like enjoying the autumnal season. And
I've been having the nicest swims, because actually it's been really warm, and today I was gutting out my daughter's shed and I got really quite warm, and then I thought I'm too tired to take the dogs a walk. I'll take them down for a swim. And, we just stayed in swimming around. It was like raining, but the water's so nice just now, and it's a really, really good time for people that are scared of the cold water to start.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because then, it's not as bad. And then, you can gently just, if you keep going as it slowly starts to get colder, it certainly can't get wetter. It can get colder, but it can't really get any wetter. What's your garden been like with the rain?
Well, it's not been a great season. I mean, some of the herbs have been okay, veg wise. The kind of cool weather loving plants that don't mind it a bit wetter have been fine. The brassicas have been okay. The potatoes. Again, we've had really strong winds and things, so things that are susceptible to getting blown over, like the peas have, they've really suffered. The squashes and courgettes have really suffered. But garlic, onions, potatoes, brassicas are fine. So there's always something to eat, and there's not much you can do about the weather. You just have to put it in the ground and hope that you're going to get some sunshine. But yeah, it's not been the greatest growing season, unfortunately. So
yeah, there really isn't anything that you can do about that. Yeah, I know. What about the polytunnel, which doesn't?
Yeah, the tunnel's fine because it's a bit more sheltered in there, obviously. So I've had a really good crop of tomatoes. There's corn, there's chilies, there's courgettes inside, there's squashes inside, and there's some beans as well. So it's not been too bad in the tunnel. Yeah, it's been okay. So actually, in this kind of climate, then if you're wanting to grow your own food, or have a bit of shelter for growing other plants, herbs and things, then a polytunnel is a good solution. It's certainly kind of revolutionises growing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think you could survive, really, could you? And certainly in Argyll.
Yeah.
Something sheltered. So September's wild medicine plant-wise, what have we got?
September's wild medicine. So we've got in from the book, we've got the elderberries. So that is something that is ready at the moment, ready to harvest. Get in there first before the birds do. So elder is pretty much a medicine chest all in itself. It's a fantastic tree. Obviously used as wild food as well. So you've got the flowers coming through usually in the summertime, followed by the berries if you don't pick all the flowers. And the berries themselves are very high in vitamin C. They contain compounds called anthocyanins, which are a type of kind of antioxidant compound. They've got very potent antiviral activity. So actually all parts of the elder tree do, but particularly the berries are a good thing to harvest this time of year. So, you can make these into like a cordial, or you could make a vinegar extract or an alcohol extract, like a tincture, or an elderberry syrup. And you can take that as a kind of prophylactic, as a preventative to picking up infections, particularly viral infections over the winter. So coughs, colds, flu, these kind of things. There's actually a researcher that's kind of dedicated her life to the elder and has done loads and loads of research on the properties of elder and its immune stimulating properties and antiviral properties. So it's definitely a good one to get in there. You can cook with it as well. So, you can add the berries into pies, or, as you were saying before, jams or chutneys, or things like that as well. So you'll still get the goodness from that. I do usually recommend to people that they cook the berries first, because some people do get a bit of an upset stomach from the berries if they're eaten raw. So just to avoid that, it's best to cook them first. And in the book, there is actually a recipe for spiced elderberry cordial, which is one of my favourites. Go-to recipes for the elderberry. So you can definitely check that out at this time of year. Get yourself set for winter.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I don't know what it's like round where you are, but there's still a lot of people getting, well, what would usually be winter type flu colds and the cough. My niece, they thought she had whooping cough, but they're now saying it's strep throat. They did some swabs on her. She's really been pretty unwell for a couple of weeks. So something like that would be, I mean, let's face it, after the nonsense since 2020, regardless of what you did or didn't do, so many people's immune systems are struggling now, aren't they?
Yeah. And I think, as you say, with the weather being the way that it has this year, we've not had as much access to vitamin D, which is so important for our immune system health. We've when we've been living in really kind of cold, damp conditions for a prolonged period of time, it just runs you down. There are a lot of bugs going around. This change of the season does tend to kind of bring different challenges for in terms of bacterial and viral infections. So you do sometimes find that going into the autumn or like from the winter into the spring, from the autumn into the winter, when the seasons start to shift, you do sometimes find that that's a time when people are a bit more susceptible to picking up infections. So, it's a good time of year to be thinking about that and giving your body what it needs to help you fight off those bugs, strengthening your system to give it a fighting chance, literally. And the great thing about elderberry is that it's pretty safe. It's safe for most people. There's, it's safe for children. It's safe for older people. It's good for adults. It's not something that you need to worry about medicines interacting with. So it's quite a good one to add in there. It's quite a food-based one. It's not harmful in any way. It's not dangerous.
Well, I was thinking what you were saying about a drink. That's always a good way for kids, because
Absolutely.
I'm sure there's a lot of kids. The kids go to school and they catch everything, don't they? Especially when they're younger, when their immune systems are just learning. So that's why I think something that your kids will like. You make a wee special kind of drink. So what would be? So you're saying to sort of they could be more difficult to digest raw. So could you make a tea with them, like a kind of, almost like a toddy type?
Yeah, you absolutely could. Yeah, so with berries and kind of harder fruits and things like that, barks, roots, then what you can do is you can make a decoction, which is basically like a boiled tea. So you're adding your berries to some water and then just simmering them in water for 20 minutes or so, up to an hour. You don't really need to do it for that long with the elderberry, especially when they're fresh. So simmer for 20 minutes, and then that's like a tea basically. So it's a decoction, you would call that. So that's quite a good way to take them. And as you say, you can pick them now and freeze them if you don't have time to process them at the moment. You can put them in the freezer and wait until you've got a bit more time to make something out of them. And yeah, like I say, there's a recipe in the book for the spiced elderberry cordial, which is a winner.
Awesome.
That's a good one for kids as well.
And what else do we have this fine month?
So the other plants that are in the book for September, we've got rose, particularly focusing on the rose hips. So September is all about kind of boosting your immunity, really getting ready for winter and harvesting those plants that are going to help see you through the winter. So rose hips, again, very high in vitamin C. Classically were used as rosehip syrup, which was given out back in the day. I think my mother's generation kind of remember being given rosehip syrup as a kind of preventative.
That was my era too. I used to love it.
Yeah. I mean, again, syrup's obviously quite high in sugar. A good way to get kids to take things, but maybe the sugar itself is not such a great option. But yeah, rose hips, like I say, very high in vitamin C, very good for collagen function and cartilage repair as well. So great for kind of joint health, or if you've got any kind of health issues that affect collagen function. So that's a good one to get in there. One thing that I'll say about the rose hips is when you're harvesting them, if you want to use them, then you do have to remove the seeds. The seeds have got kind of tiny hairs covering them, which can be quite irritant. So you can kind of rinse them out or scoop out the seeds to remove the irritant hairs. And I don't know if anybody else was as mean as we were growing up in Glasgow, and we used to put rose hips down people's backs and smash them. Itchy coos. Pretty horrible.
Bed, that's even worse.
Yeah,
so,
it's terrible.
In terms of knowing when they're kind of at the most perfect stage of ripeness, have you got any tips for that? My friend was asking.
Yeah, so they're ripe when they kind of go kind of orangey red. Sometimes you'll get some that are kind of a little bit still green. It's okay to harvest them when they're like that. They are better when they're more orangey red. Again, we've had a very wet summer, so the likelihood is that some of them will have started to kind of go a bit moldy or started to rot a bit. Again, it's just the weather. When we have wet seasons like this, it's really hard. All harvests are going to be low. A lot of things are going to be starting to rot or be subject to mold or fungal growth. I've been out in the woods a couple of times this week, and I would say probably 80% of the porcini ceps that I've found have been affected by bolete eater fungus. So it's just such a shame because there's all these beautiful mushrooms there, but they're totally ruined because it's just been so wet. It's just the weather
even
this year.
Mushrooms are, can be affected. Yeah,
by fungus, which is hilarious. It's like a fungus that eats another fungus, which is crazy. But it does leave you standing in the woods wondering at the mysteries of nature and like fungus eating fungus. That's amazing.
It was reading it. It was one of Paul Stammett's books, I think, or it might have been Fantastic Fungi, which I've watched like 5 times. It's probably time to watch it again. Saying it's kind of it's between a plant and an animal, and you're like, it's just
it's
amazing,
crazy,
isn't it?
It's amazing. Yeah,
absolutely. And also, we live in an area. People come here for the mushroom season.
Yeah.
So not just for the magic mushrooms, but for the incredible healing qualities that they have.
Yeah, and the edible ones as well. All mushrooms have, again, back to immune system health. All mushrooms have contain polysaccharides, usually beta glucans. So they're a specialized form of polysaccharide that have various effects on the human immune system depending on which type of polysaccharides they contain, but usually they have some kind of a modulating effect on the immune system, so they kind of improve function, which is why there's a lot of mushrooms are used as an adjunct to cancer treatments and for people who are going through living with cancer, and also for people whose immune systems are low, or are fighting off chronic infection. The medicinal mushrooms can really play quite an amazing role in supporting those people. So definitely good to get them into your diet if you can.
Yeah, Jane was talking about them again. How easy it is to kind of slip off, create good habits, and then just maybe you run out and you just forget, and it's so easy to do that, isn't it? And that's why it's really good to have that constant reminder. Even what you were saying there about making them into drinks, I thought that sounds lovely. But I've not done that. I did it last year, and then I just forget, and that's why it's so nice to be reminded. And a lot of the time it is just remembering. Last month we did the diversity challenge. Just add a few different herbs or spices in, go in the garden and get a few things out. And this month's about, a forage a day, just adding some wild food into your diet, just to, again, the microbiome, we know that from a lot of the studies that Monica's done, the difference it can make when you actually interact with nature the way we were meant to.
Absolutely.
Talk about our retreat, because obviously our retreat evolves, because twice a year we're doing it. So every sort of 6 months we've learned more. People's health's changed, and I was at this health fair yesterday and talking very much about the nervous system and the microbiome, because so many people are we know the microbiome, if you really tend that your immune system's going to be so much stronger. But the other thing is, as we know, you can eat a lot of great food, but if you're a nervous wreck and you're running your adrenals, then you're changing the pH in the gut and you're creating that environment for things that you don't really want to thrive in there. So I'm going to be really focusing in on that and on this retreat. I mean, we always do it, but just a little bit more, because what we're seeing is people with really quite debilitating fatigue, which isn't life-threatening, but it just kind of really takes away your joie de vivre, your motivation, your kind of joy, really, because you're just kind of trying to get through the stages. So I was thinking of really powerful ways to influence. I mean, obviously, letting go is my big passion, but really simple exercises that I'm going to teach this time on how to get yourself out of fight or flight, because that's, you're either in the healing and restoring phase, or you're in the runaway freeze phase, and we want to be able to take ourselves out of that state so that the healing can happen. And also the other big thing for healing is patience. And who has the patience to wait for the body to just start to slowly, my daughter, she's been getting acupuncture with Emma Vaughan, who's also a Chinese doctor. And she's very much, slowly catch your monkey. And just saying, it's a few months in, 6 months in, energy's starting to flow again. And that's a challenge, especially when you're young. Really just being patient. And, we know if our leg's under a plaster, you're just, well, it's healing. You don't feel anything. You're not sitting around looking at it going, hurry up. It'll just take time. But there's something about why we don't understand that with our digestive system and give it the patience and the time. So that's going to be a big focus on, from my perspective, in the winter retreat, really focusing in on that patience and moving out of that frustration and fear and, wanting to find out what's happening, when am I going to be better, all of that stuff that actually takes us back into the fight or flight or freeze response. So that's going to be a big focus, because, as I say, I'm just hearing so many people talking about the same things. And like we were saying, from the elements wild medicine, utilising the cold. I've also got a fasting retreat coming up, which is full, actually, and how we can intermittent fast, which we do on our retreat as well, on the wild medicine retreat. So all these really simple biohacks that we know work, but it's not going to work if you just do it one night, 1 week. It's this, and that's the thing about the tribe. I went to Sharon Tate's Warrior Water Women last night, and she's got a huge crowd of women supporting each other, and that's really the way I see it going forward. And we created that with all the people that come to our wild medicine, the people that come back every single time we do one. It's that keeping on, isn't it? It's just
absolutely
in the process.
I think there's something to be said for, the way that our kind of society functions, and we're always on to the next thing. Something's done and we're on to the next thing, and we expect things to happen immediately and to have immediate results, and actually that's just not how it works. It's not how nature works. It's not how the body works. And as you say, you can't expect to, eat a healthy meal and for everything to be fine. You have to be doing it all the time. You have to be putting the work in, and it takes time to heal, and especially if you're in a very depleted place, you can't expect miracles overnight. So I think, but none of it can happen without the outside support and the support of the wider community and the people that you've got around you. So that's the amazing thing about the wild medicine retreats and creating that community, and as you say, people that have been before, they continue to support each other after the retreat's over, because that's the important bit, is taking that stuff out into your day-to-day life and managing to put it into practice. And it's so great when you hear feedback from people that are managing to do that.
Community is immunity.
Another T-shirt.
Yeah, well, I've already sent that to Kirsten. This is because, Lynn McTaggart's research in her last book, I don't know if you've read any of her work. She wrote The Field, which was about the quantum field, this energetic field that we live in, that's everywhere, everything the eye can see and beyond. Then she wrote The Bond, which is very much about how even if you're somebody sleeping within a kilometre of you can be having an effect on you. And then she wrote The Intention Experiment, was about how we can collectively intend or pray. It's nothing new. It's just that because she's a journalist and a scientist, she was measuring the effect of group intention. And then, but also then when she was doing that, so her last book was The Power of Eight, which the title doesn't really say, doesn't really explain how good the book is, because what it was about the effect on the people who are intending and how much better they got when they were intending for someone else. And the conclusion was community and altruism heals. Looking after somebody, within reasonable parameters, helping others. It's in the 12-step program, Give Back. It's in the biggest business networking, Givers Gain. It's all about that, being part of the community, being an active part, and that's what we're seeing now. All these swimming groups and breathing groups, etc. And the foraging's definitely starting to take off. People are definitely starting to, but I think really we all need a much deeper understanding of the plants that grow around us. And then what you do, obviously, in the retreat is actually the practical medicine making, which is so helpful.
Absolutely, yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, because look, it's you've given it all away in the book, but we all know that that's not enough often.
Yeah, and I think you can have the recipes written down there and the processes and everything, but what can be really helpful is to actually go through the process with somebody who's done it a million times before, just to so that you can troubleshoot, or you can say, oh, that's what you mean by mixing it clockwise 6 times or whatever. You can actually get into the process and really find out what my passion is with teaching practical things is I like to keep it simple for people, and I want to show people how easy it is to do this stuff in your own kitchen. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need a degree in herbal medicine to be able to make your own simple remedies and keep yourself well. It's about bringing this back to just being able to go out and pick something and preserve it in your kitchen with basic equipment. So that's my real passion, is to show people how simple it is. But sometimes, you do need a little bit of help to get you to that place where it feels easy to do, and it feels like, oh yeah, I could do that at home,
Yes.
We all need a bit of guidance sometimes, and I think
the nice thing is that what you do is people can go out and actually, after they've had the forage walk, usually the next day, they can then go and get the plants that called to them, either to make a medicine for themselves or for a loved one or a friend, so that you get that very practical experience. And it was great at Lindbreck that last weekend as well, making the butters. That was, I'd forgotten about that as well, and I've done that before. But again, it's just that reminder, and it's so easy, and it's so nice. And I think, again, going back to kids, my mum was always a great one for, wait, and Granny will put a wee bit of cream on for you, or Granny will, and that's a big part of the healing, is we know that somebody's putting a wee bit of cream
for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's so nice when it's not full of shite.
Yeah, that's it. You picked it out of the ground. You've got this thing that you've made that is so useful, and you've got a shelf full of remedies. And yeah, I mean, even in my house, there's a lot of people coming and going in my house all the time, and somebody will have a bite, or a splinter, or they've bruised their knee or something, and there's always something that I can pull out and be like, yeah, here you go, put this on, that's made out of peppermint, and that's made out of plantain, and this is made out of comfrey, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be able to do for people.
Absolutely. And even that sort of midgie, we know that when the midges come big time, there ain't no repellent in the world apart from going into your house that works. But it's nice that one that you made smelled absolutely delicious. So just when there's the kind of one or two around, that you can fend them off a little bit. So yeah, it's really nice to know, because I still think that's an area, the toxins in the house, the skincare, the beauty products, and the summer is just absolutely toxic. Absolutely. And again, it's one day it's not going to do you any harm, but when it's every single day over decades and decades, it's just another straw on the immune system's back, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, totally.
Well, I've had the summer off retreats, because obviously I don't do midgie season. And it turns out I don't do monsoon season either. But I'm kind of now, I'm like, I'm looking forward to getting back into it. And so I'm really excited to get back to Loch Allen. And again, for those of you who have not been or are thinking of coming, Loch Allen, that we have a beautiful white sandy beach literally on the doorstep. You get your own, everybody gets their own private room with their ensuite toilet and shower, which a lot of people really like, because if you're eating a lot of our delicious wild medicine, the bowels can move a lot, and it means there's no embarrassment. So having your own private room and ensuite is a real luxury. And we have, it's just a gorgeous setting with a lovely big patio outside. And as I say, the beach, we've got a natural, an ancient forest right there, but we also have quite phenomenal spaces round about. Again, of course, it'll depend on the weather, where we go and what we do, because we kind of wing it a little bit in terms of, obviously we like to be outside as much as possible. So layering up if you're coming, so that you'll stay comfortable. But beautiful fire pit we can have there as well. So yeah,
we just seem to have a bit of magic where we call in the good weather for our retreats, though. I mean, touch wood. We've been super lucky so far. Even in terrible weather years, we seem to have managed to manifest amazing weather for our retreats. So long may that continue, universe. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's always wise to wrap up and bring waterproofs anyway.
Well, exactly. I mean, prepare for the worst and expect the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't like to mention it, because it literally has happened every single time we've had beautiful weather. And in April there, it was just, we're so lucky. Absolutely so lucky. Yeah, so, fantastic. Is there anything else? Did we cover all of September's magical wild?
The last one was Rowan, which I'll briefly mention because it is ready at the moment, and the Rowan berries are dripping from the trees here just now. So that's another one to get in for the immune system. Traditionally in the Highlands, it used to be cooked with apples and brown sugar and used to help people convalesce, so recover from lung illness. So there's not a lot of research around the Rowan trees berries, but I think that it probably does have some action on the immune system as well, as many of the berries and fruits do. So that's another one that you can include. Very sour to taste, need to be cooked before use. But yeah, the classic one is Rowan jelly, and again, there's a recipe for that in the book.
Yes, I actually made that, I think, at our very first retreat in Portavadie. It was absolutely delicious. We did
Rowan jelly at that retreat. Yeah.
Yes, and I'll maybe make that again. This definitely, because that's the other thing I'm hearing. A lot of people, lungs, breathless, crackly, testy. So well, again, it's here just at the right time when we need it.
And Rowan, you know, is traditionally a symbol of protection as well. And I wonder if that also links into that protection from outside infection as well.
Yeah, of course.
So,
yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, great to see you. And
thanks everyone for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you
yes,
on our winter retreat.
Our winter retreat starts on the 31st of October. And as I say, it's in Loch Allen, which is, what, a couple hours drive from Glasgow? 3 hours?
About 3 to 3.5 hours drive from Glasgow,
Glasgow, yeah. So it's not too far, and it's just absolutely
well worth it.
There.
Well worth it for the beautiful
absolutely.
spot.
And the amazing food. I'm looking forward to it already.
I know, I'm salivating at the thought.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I'll chat to you soon. Good night, everybody. If anybody's got any questions, please ping them into the box, and we will answer them whenever we see them. Good night.